Right. Around 180 missiles were launched at Israel by Iran last night. It is, of course, a major escalation of the conflict in the Middle East. The IDF says it's assessing the damage caused by the attack, but the country's much vaunted air defences do appear to have been successful again. This Iron Dome, we hear so much about it. How does it work? Former Air Vice-Marshal in the RAF, Sean Bell, can join us now. So tell us then, first of all, just a simple civilian-friendly definition of the Iron Dome, please, Sean. What is it?
Well, what it's not is what it sounds like. It sounds like it's the ultimate protection against anything coming at you. What it is a radar that very quickly picks up rockets that are the main weapon of Hamas and Hezbollah. It quickly assesses, because those rockets are unguided, whether they're going to land in populated areas or in the countryside. If it assesses they're going to land in the countryside, it ignores them. And if it recognises they're going to land on a built-up area, it intercepts them and explodes them out of the sky. But it is a close range, and it is not designed to be the ultimate protection against cruise missiles or ballistic missiles. It's just very, very good at those missiles that the two, Hamas and Hezbollah, use hundreds to thousands of those every month.
Right. So do we understand then why these countries persist in using those weapons when they must be aware of the ability of the Iron Dome?
What a lot of the challenge in the Middle East is a lot of gesturing. It's because don't forget that although you might intercept the rocket, which blows it up, the fragments are going to fall down on the built-up areas. You can also, most of the Iron Dome protection system only has a limited number of rockets that it can send up into the air. So if you now, rather than Hezbollah launching 100, if they launch 10,000 at a go, then Israel will be singly unable to target all of them. So there is an element here of gesturing, of putting fear in, but without actually causing too much damage. The real challenge, of course, overnight was that the weapons, unlike in April, where there were a load of drones launched at Israel, it sounds like that most of these 180 missiles were ballistic missiles. They're incredibly fast, a lot more difficult to shoot down. And although Israel claims to have destroyed most of them, some of the video footage emerging does seem to contradict that.
Right. And of course, it's the psychological impact on an entire nation, Israel, that had to take to shelters last evening. I mean, it must be having an impact on everybody, old people, tiny children, really, really terrifying.
It is. I've got some Israeli colleagues. An Israeli colonel from the Air Force, and as soon as I knew they were under attack, I gave him a call, and he said, "Oh well, all of our buildings have a little cube in the cellar, which is our missile defence zone. We're quite happily sat here. It's quite noisy outside." He said, "I'm very glad we're in here." But they didn't seem to miss a beat. But of course, inevitably, if they take a direct strike, that's worrying. But exactly as you say, it's the fear, it's the apprehension. I've just come back from 6 days in Ukraine. And whilst, when the air raid siren was going off in Kyiv the last couple of nights, it doesn't half get your heart going, even though the actual risk of getting killed is relatively small. So for Israelis themselves, this would have been a very worrying time.
Let's now look a little more and a little harder at the crisis in the Middle East. The UN Security Council has been discussing the crisis a little earlier today. The American ambassador, Linda Thomas-Greenfield, called for further sanctions against Iran. And the Lebanese representative restated support for the ceasefire proposal that was tabled by the USA and by France. We can talk now to Ori Goldschmidt, who's the Israeli embassy spokesman here in London. Ori, welcome back to the programme.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Thank you, and you're always welcome. So we wait to see Israel's response to what happened last night. Some sort of response, no doubt inevitable. Many people would completely understand that. But already, it would also be, could one argue that the strength of Israel's counter-strike, we don't know what it's going to be, but surely Israel won't want a full-blown conflagration on land and in the air against Iran, with Hezbollah and other proxies like the Houthis unleashed.
Well, we have to understand what happened yesterday was extremely worrying. We had almost 181 ballistic missiles that were sent over to Israeli citizens. Millions of people had to run to shelters, and including my family, of course. We know that when they're sending a missile, there are 12 minutes until it can reach out to Israel. And so their intent really was to kill and to murder innocent people. Thanks to our defense system and thanks to the help of our allies, the Americans, the UK and others, we were able to minimize the casualties, but this could have been a devastating situation. And of course, Israel will have to respond. And as our prime minister and other leaders have said, we will have to respond strongly, as I'm sure any country would expect the government to respond if only one ballistic missile would have reached their citizens. So that's what Israel is going to do.
Yeah, you will want to respond and you will respond. But just returning to the point, I mean, Israel is a country that likes to consider itself accountable to responsible world opinion. And on that basis, you will you, want to see this thing escalate beyond all control? You will want to contain your response and what flows from it.
Well, we have been trying to contain ourselves for almost a year now. I remind you that on the 6th of October, there was a ceasefire in Israel, and it's Hamas, one of the Iranian proxies, that started a war against us by murdering 1,200 people, taking people hostages, and more. And the next day, Hezbollah decided to join them on the northern border and to attack Israel. We have, for almost a year now, received thousands of rockets, almost 10,000 of rockets coming from the northern border. It's unbelievable. Some people maybe don't understand, but it's something like 1 rocket per hour.
Yes.
So this is not a reality that we can accept. Of course, both of them are proxies of Iran. We have been attacked by the Houthis, by other militias, and all of them are being directed by Iran, the axis of evil. Iran is trying to build a ring of fire, as they say, around Israel, and that's not something that we can accept. So they are the one escalating. We are here trying to protect us, and we will protect us, and we will defend us against this aggression.
Yeah, and look, and I don't think anyone sensible could say that Israel should tolerate what has been inflicted upon it by its enemies. But I wonder what the war aims are, and I don't know how far you're even able to begin to answer this, but what are the war aims when you consider that where Lebanon is concerned, past occupation, past attacks into Lebanon had the effect of strengthening and not weakening Hezbollah ultimately. There is always, isn't there, another leader ready to take a leader's place. There are always young men willing to join the fight. How do you defeat Hezbollah without perpetual war, without perpetual occupation?
We're not occupying Lebanon. I just want to clarify.
No, that's clear. I wondered about the war aim for the immediate future.
So our aim is very clear, is to live peacefully along our borders and to be able to have our citizens to go live back in their cities, in their houses. They've been evacuated for almost a year now, and then they're not living in their houses. They're refugees within their own country. That's on the northern border. Hezbollah is actually a threat also to Lebanese people as well. They have taken the Lebanese people hostages.
Yes.
And their aim is to murder Israelis. They say it out loud. They shout death to Israel, death to the United States. They're actually against liberal values, against values that you and I share.
Yes.
So we have to make sure that Hezbollah is no longer a threat to Israel, and that Iran is no longer a threat not only to Israel or to the Middle East, but also, to Ukraine, to Europe. They are operating within UK soil as well. They have been, at least in the past. So we really need to understand what Israel is doing right now is protecting itself, but is playing a big role here within the Middle East.
Yeah, and again, to be clear, I mean the wish to defend yourself and protect your people, that is understandable. It's how that is achieved. That's the question, I suppose. Look, let's talk a bit about politics. I mean, in any democracy, domestic politics plays a part almost no matter what the crisis. The fact is that the Prime Minister of Israel, Benjamin Netanyahu, has now grown in popularity. I mean, how do you answer that perception, which is quite widespread, that the Prime Minister of Israel sees conflict as a political lifeline for himself?
Well, the aims of the war that, again, was imposed on us, and that's not something that we wanted, have been very clear from the beginning. We want to return our hostages. I can't believe that I'm saying that, but almost it will be a year that our hostages have been taken hostages in the dungeons of Gaza, and we still haven't been able to have them back. So we want our hostages to be able to come back. We want to eliminate the threat of Hamas, the threat of Hezbollah. And, you know, in our national anthem, we sing that we want to live free in our country, and that's really the aim that we want to achieve. That had nothing to do with political aims of one leader or another. Every Israeli deserves to live in peace within its border, and we are a country that seeks peace. We have been able to sign peace agreements with many countries in the Middle East. Hopefully there will be more, and that's all what we're looking for at the end of the day.
All right, so your answer is it is all about security, nothing to do with politics. Ori Goldschmidt, thank you so much at the Israel Embassy in London.